Greetings, and welcome to Arts Across America, presented by Sankofa.org and the Kennedy Center. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the ancestors and all those who came before us, all those who paved a way for us to be here today, our Native and Indigenous brothers and sisters, and our African ancestors. My name is Gina Belafonte, and I'm an artivist and an executive director of Sankofa.org. And I hear an echo, and you all might too. So let me see if there we go. I think that might be better. Beautiful. Love Kennedy Center Tech. So again, I'm Gina Belafonte. I'm an artivist and the executive director of Sankofa.org. Sankofa.org is a nonprofit organization co-founded by my father, Harry Belafonte, along with myself and Raul Roach. Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me now. Let somebody let me know if you can hear me. Great. I'm going to start all the way from the top because I think all of the information that I share with you today is important for you to understand and to hear as we as arts organizations have come together in collaboration. So greetings once again to Arts Across America, presented by Sankofa.org and the Kennedy Center. And before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the ancestors and those who came before us, those who paved a way for us to be here today, our Native and Indigenous brothers and sisters, our African ancestors. So we are mindful of where we are and where we come from. My name is Gina Belafonte. I'm an artivist and the executive director of Sankofa.org. And Sankofa is a nonprofit organization founded by myself, a colleague, Raul Roach, and my father, Harry Belafonte. We educate, motivate, and activate artists and allies in service of grassroots movements and equitable change. And we use the arts as a tool to engage the public, just as we're doing today. The Kennedy Center is working with Sankofa to curate performances from geodiverse locations across the country to uplift and tell the story of their communities in the time of coronavirus. Arts Across America seeks to utilize the Kennedy Center's digital platforms and partnerships with community organizations to connect and uplift the stories of art and communities from across the country, while also providing much needed support to artists. Arts Across America performances feature visionary curators, artists, workers, using their power and agency to transform their community and thus the world. This is as much a celebration of the community that surrounds the artist as it is about the art itself. Well, Sankofa is honored to be partnering with the Kennedy Center today, and joining us this lovely segment, I'm so excited, is with my friend, 6-time Grammy Award-winning jazz bassist, Christian McBride. Welcome, Christian.
Gina, what's happening?
How you doing?
So happy to see you. It's been so long.
I know. It's been way too long. I mean, geez, the last time I saw you was obviously before Corona, when we were able to, be in person. I got to see a great performance that you did. Was that with Laurie Anderson? I don't remember who it was with. It was fabulous. It was downtown Los Angeles.
Oh, no, that's right. The one in LA at Walt Disney Concert Hall, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was fabulous, as you're always fabulous. I've seen you in multiple different venues. We've been friends for quite some time, actually. Let's
Thank
talk
you,
about that,
anniversary.
shall we?
You
What?
realize, you know how long it's been? Shall I call out the number?
I think 25. Is it 25 years?
What do we get? A silver platter for that? 25 and silver, right?
I think so. And I'm wearing it in honor of how long we've known each other
There
today.
you go.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. We met 25 years ago during the filming of Kansas City, directed by Bob Altman.
That's correct.
Right. What an incredible experience that was. And I'm going to have you talk about that a little in just a minute, right after this first question. And obviously, one thing I want to say is, Christian, there's so much about you that is so fabulous and so amazing. And aside from your artistry, you're just a wonderful person and just a lovable human being who I'm so grateful to have in my life. And I am not a jazz aficionado by any means. And so this conversation is going to be rather unique, I think, in some ways, because I'm not going to be talking to you about the history of jazz. And while we might mention some of the amazing collaborations you've done, I'm really focusing our conversation today and just like relaxing, kicking back. I got my snacks, I got my water here, just to chill and just share some time together. And
well, I'm telling you, it's going to be it's going to be refreshing for me to just hang and talk with a friend and really not talk about the history of jazz, because I do that all the time.
Right, exactly.
But I'm looking forward to this.
So I read something about you, and I just want to know.
Fake news.
It says you can be likened to a force of nature, fusing the fire and fury of a virtuoso with the depth and grounding of a seasoned journeyman.
I paid a guy to write that.
But it's true. It's really true. I think, when a lot of people first meet you, and I don't know, I mean, obviously I can't speak to everyone's experience of you, but I think when people first meet you, they're like, oh gosh, Christian is just he's just a funny, jolly guy. But when they sit down and they really listen to you play and also listen to you collaborate with your other artists, I mean, you are a journeyman, you are a sage, you are wise, like you know how to listen and how to share. And I just wanted to say that I've read that about you and I was like, wow, that's all such fancy language and it's just all super true.
Well, thank you, Gina. That's very kind of you. Well, going back to when we did the Kansas City film.
Yeah.
For starters, that was the first time I'd actually had a chance to participate in a major motion picture. I mean, we were all doing what we usually do, with all the musicians kind of reliving gangster era, late 1930s Kansas City.
Yes.
Getting to meet you and your dad, that was the best thing of all, making that movie. I have some old high 8 videos because I was carrying my camcorder around.
Yes,
I got all of behind the scenes footage and your dad telling me all these great jokes.
Which we'll tell some of today, right?
I can't. Not on here. Definitely off the record.
Okay.
And meeting you, of course, and going out to dinner with you and your father one night when we were on the movie set, and I had a little run-in with somebody on set that day. And your pops was just like, I'll take care of this. Don't worry about it. It's cool. You won't have that problem anymore.
Well, I mean, the thing that's so extraordinary about that film in particular is that, well, one, just the collection of people that participated in that. I mean, that was a film with a very interesting acting cast. It was Miranda Richardson. It was Michael Murphy, Steve Buscemi. It was Dermot Mulroney. Right. I mean, there was a lot of really interesting folks. Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Yeah.
But I mean, come on, the lineup of Well, yeah, I had my little moment there.
Doing your
Um,
dancing
but
thing up in the hay club.
I was playing the bar hoe. I was a bar hoe. Come on, let's be honest. And happy to be that, by the way.
Hey, there's a place for that.
There was, but I
That,
mean, let's
that was
talk about
prevalent
it.
in jazz at one time.
Exactly, exactly. But what was so incredible about Bob was that, unlike most movies where musicians or singers, play to playback and they kind of like mouth through what they've previously recorded, this was all live.
Right,
You
right.
all played all that shit live. I mean,
Yeah.
that was amazing. I mean, with Joshua Redman and Cyrus Chestnut and Mark
Everybody.
Whitfield and Jerry Allen. I
Jerry
mean,
Allen. Yep.
James Carter, your favorite.
Yeah, my man.
But I mean, it's just like,
Ron Carter, Victor Lewis, Kevin Mahogany,
yes,
everybody.
yeah, it was an incredible collection of amazing
Yeah,
musicians.
yeah. Butch
And so
Morris.
when Bob said, like, come on, I'm going to stick you in this scene, like go into hair and makeup, I was like, what?
Yeah.
I couldn't have been happier. Because when you're thrown into to films as an extra, and I wasn't on the set to do that because at that time I was my father's acting coach. I know it sounds odd, but it's true, y'all.
Hey.
But when he said that to me, I thought to myself, I was like, oh my God, well, if I'm in this scene, I'm going to be stuck here. Like I can't just do one angle and then split. I couldn't have been in the best place. I mean, all of the takes when you guys playing that music, which was so rich and so exciting, it was just so amazing. It was so amazing. So let's talk about that conflict that you had.
No, let's not talk about that conflict.
Well, that person or that time, I mean, there was a lot of musicians there. It was a lot of really amazing things. And on a totally separate note, there was this really, excuse me, beautiful coming together of some of those duets and things that happened. And I think, like, in the history of filmmaking, there's such a beautiful, beautiful, tender moment when you and Ron Carter have that like bass duet.
Yeah. So
yeah,
you all right over there, ain't you?
I'm fine. I'm so excited. I'm remembering that movie. I'm like, what?
So when Ron and I did that duet, I think we had pretty much all the musicians were done. We had already rapped.
Yeah.
And because everybody knew we were going to do that duet on the final day, I remember everybody said, no, we're staying for this. We got to see this. It was almost like they were hanging out for like a pay-per-view match. They like, no, we want to see this.
Right. But wait, but let's also set that up to say that period in music, there was that kind of almost like in hip hop with a lot of the b-boys and dancers and breakdancing, there was what they called the cutting contest.
Yep.
And musicians would go back and forth in competition.
That's right.
To see like who would win.
Yep.
A little like 30-second to 2-minute solo match.
I kind of don't mind that. I mean, I know there's a stigma when it comes to what competition means to a lot of people these days. Like, well, it shouldn't be competitive. You're joining forces to create art. Yes, that's very, very true. But there was an excitement that made the general public, the non-music connoisseur, really, like, oh man, I want to see this. Lester Young, Ben Webster, or like we tried to do in the film. We had Joshua Redman versus James Carter, Nicholas Payton versus Butch Morris. Now, of course, these weren't actual competitions, but it was fun. We can't wait to see this.
Yeah, I know. I mean, because it was live, and they had to show up, and they had to be on their game, and they had to and there was a sense of like, I'm gonna blow you away right now, and the other one was like, no, I'm gonna blow you away.
I think competition is good.
Yeah, it was. Well, it made some of the most prolific music.
Yeah.
I'm sure as a director, Bob was just quelling, as we say in the Jewish community. He was absolutely he had just an embarrassment of riches. And in fact, I believe after the movie came out, there was like a segment, like a music documentary segment just on the creation of the music for that film.
That's right.
Anyway, those of you who are listening, here we are at Arts Across America talking with Christian McBride. You guys have got to check out Kansas City. You should see the film. It's a great film. And you should source out that little section of music that it was in an expanded sort of documentary.
Yeah, I think it was called Jazz 34 or something like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I have my moments in it too. Of course, when I'm popping up and I'm like dancing to the music and being all 20s flapper ho. Anyway, and I use that term ho in the loveliest and most endearing way. Because it was legal, at least in that space.
Exactly.
We made it legal. You are identified as a jazz bassist, but your the way in which you got into that is through a lot of different channels.
Exactly.
I would love for you to just talk a little bit about your history for anyone who's tuning in that doesn't really know who you are. I mean, you come from a classical world, you went to Juilliard, but you also had a very deep connection and relationship to James Brown. And I guess if you just take James Brown and classical music and you mix it together, you get jazz. But talk a little bit about your early beginnings in music, or just your how you approach music from a contextual perspective and your influences.
Well, it runs in the family. I'm carrying on a family tradition. My father plays bass. My great uncle plays the bass. So I was surrounded by bass. I was probably going to, if not be a professional bassist, I was probably going to have something to do in the music industry, because there was also my uncle, my mother's brother, who was a promotions manager for a very popular radio station in Philly. And so I was just surrounded by music all the time. They were taking me to live shows all the time. By the time I was old enough to really appreciate what my father was doing, by that time he had started playing with the great Cuban conguero Mongo Santa Maria. And, I grew up listening to all this R&B and soul and funk. And
did Mongo Santa Maria, who did Soma Cosa?
That was Manu Dibango, who we just lost.
Yes. That's why he's on the top. That's why it's on the top of my brain. Yeah.
But I was surrounded by all of these different styles of music, and my grandfather loved classical music. He loved opera, and then my great uncle was the hardcore jazz fan of the family.
Right.
So I started playing the electric bass when I was 9. I started playing the upright bass when I was 11. And when my great uncle found out that I was playing the upright bass, he got so excited, and he said, "Come over to my apartment. I got something for you." And he basically gave me a crash course in the history of jazz bass in a couple of hours, and that single-handedly made me fall in love with jazz.
Well, can I make a request that maybe you give us a sampling of a little bit of your genius?
Well, you know what I'm going to do? I was sitting here figuring out in my head while we were talking. I'm going to play a song that we did in the film in Kansas.
Okay. Yes, I love it.
Hope I remember it.
I hope you do too.
If I don't remember it, I'll just do what we jazz musicians do: improvise.
Make it up, honey. Make it up. This is great. And also, there's so much to talk about. To talk about your EPK. To talk about, you have a discography that is ridiculous, like over close to 400 drops. I mean, and anyway, but you go. I'm gonna be quiet.
All right, I think let me work something out. Okay, I think I remember this. This is Moten Swing. Something like
Woo! Oh, that brought it all like rushing back. You know that ba-da, ba-da. I
That's right.
I could hear the whole entire band. I mean,
Right.
that is fabulous. Oh my God, thank you for that. That just brings
my
my heart
pleasure.
so much joy. We really, I mean, that was when our love affair began. I mean, I just, you know, you were so approachable. You were so, and you still are, and you were just so generous. And everyone was really, all you guys just played the shit out of that music. It was so good. It was so good. And I wish there was a way in which I could convey it, because it was such a special time. It was such a special moment. And, you know, and Robert Altman had a very, you know, unique way of directing. He was very collaborative. He was not very micromanaging. You know, he was like, you know, you stand over there and you're going to say something sort of like that. And then, you know, and you're like left there going, oh my God, like, wait, what did he just say I could do?
Well, I remember, like, I mean, that was my first time ever doing anything like that. So I thought, well, if producers and directors are this cool, then, I mean, making movies must be fun. You know, 'cause I remember he gave me a line. It didn't make the final cut, but like you said, it was kind of off the cuff. He said, hey, Christian, I want you to mention something about, you know, when Lester Young walks into the club, mention something about his new Cadillac. Say something like, yeah, I like that new hog, you know, something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, he's going to let me like make up something. Like, wow, you know, that whole scene got taken out, but even just having that one little line, I was like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah. So cool. So cool. One of the highlights of my life, for sure.
Yeah, ditto.
For sure. And part of that is because I got to meet you, and we've stayed friends for all these years, and you're just such a love.
Straight. 25 going on 25 more.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Yes, please.
You know it.
So, you know, I'm looking at the time. You're right. It kind of goes quickly, and I want to make sure that, you know, people know where to find you. So why don't we do a little bit of a drop of that? Where can people find you?
Well, you know, the usual channels that everybody goes to these days: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. My Facebook handle is just facebook.com/official Christian McBride. My Twitter handle is McBride's World. And my Instagram handle is CHR McBride, the first three letters of my first name, and McBride, CHR McBride.
Beautiful.
And there's also ChristianMcBride.com, but apparently no one really goes to websites anymore. They just go straight to the social media pages.
Yeah, well, I think once they go to your social media pages first and they
Right.
want to learn more and find out more, then they'll go to your website for sure.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about, musicians and artists in general. Some just stick and stay in their lane and they do their art and they go about their business, and others are compelled to find ways in which to give back to the community and be of service in some way. And I would love for you to talk a little bit about Jazz House. Is it Jazz House Kids?
Yep, that's right.
I think Jazz House Kids is such a wonderful way, because what I've noticed more and more is that with arts-based learning, regardless of the art, young people really begin to learn so many different skills, whether it's about leadership, whether it's about self-esteem, whether it's about being of service or being in community and collaborating. So tell us a little bit about Jazz House Kids.
See, you kind of rattled off our mission statement without me saying anything, because one thing I'm most proud of about Jazz House Kids, and like you said, all arts-based curriculum, is that the skills and the disciplines that you learn in the arts, you can carry that with you wherever you go.
Yeah.
One thing about being a musician, particularly about being a jazz musician where people are improvising, one thing you have to do is listen. You have to step back and pay attention to what someone else is playing, i.e. saying, and you react to that, and you have to support what they're saying, and hopefully the person who is taking that solo is in tune with what the rhythm section is doing, and they can they can make some music along with that. So it teaches you how to be a conversationalist. It teaches you empathy. It teaches you listening skills. It teaches you how to be a team player, and I can think back to when I was in high school. One of the main reasons why I decided that I wanted to be a professional musician, I mean, other than just loving the instrument, but people like Max Roach, Dr. Billy Taylor, Wynton Marsalis, Kenny Barron, so many musicians would take time out of their busy schedules to come and do master classes and workshops and talk to us when we were in high school. And knowing what I know now about being on the road, they really didn't have to do that, because they didn't have a lot of time in their daily schedule. But I mean, I vividly remember Dr. Billy Taylor sitting in a room with all of us and just like talking to us about what it means to be a jazz artist. Max Roach doing the same thing. Wynton Marsalis invited me to come and sit in with his band when I was 15 years old. And just like, I'd never been that scared in my whole life. So I realized that if I were ever in that same position, it'd be a no-brainer. You have to give back. You have to give back. You can't just make music with your friends and look at the younger generation and say, oh, those poor young people, they don't know what they're missing. You got to give them a hand and pull them up.
Yeah. And Jazz House Kids is it a program that goes into schools, or is there after school where the kids come, or how does it work?
Both. Yeah. So we're in schools. We're based in Montclair, New Jersey. And so the way the foundation started, and I must give kudos to my wife, Melissa Walker, because this is her brainchild. She put all of this together back in 2002. And that was the year before we met. And at that time, there were a lot of schools in Essex County, particularly in places like Newark and Irvington and East Orange. It's always the communities thick with color that lose their arts funding, And so a lot of these schools would call on Melissa and say, hey, can you bring us a program? We want to do something for our kids, a music-based program, because they had lost their funding for arts. So they would have to kind of call in third parties to come and teach their children about music. And so Melissa started Jazz House Kids. And somewhere along the way, Melissa decided, because, she was singing mostly at that time. She was going on the road.
Beautiful singer, by the way.
And yeah, absolutely. And making her own CDs. And somewhere, I don't know, within the first 5 years, she decided, I'm going to focus on this. You know, I
Yeah.
think there's a real need for this, you know.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
not only have we been able to serve our communities here in northern New Jersey, but we have since then, in the early noughts, we now have a space in downtown Montclair. I mean, obviously under the pandemic, we can't use it at the moment,
No.
but we have ensembles that come and play. We have ensembles that we do. We're still in schools. We have a summer program, and we have students coming from all over the world at this point. We have students that came from the UK, South America, and I'm very proud of how the organization has just grown and grown and grown over the last 18 years.
Yeah, I mean, I know that during COVID, it's been such a challenge for so many, uh, uh, learning institutions where there's classroom involvement to move forward, and especially when things like technology and delays when it comes to music and playing together, it's a very challenging time we're finding ourselves in.
Yeah.
But I'm super grateful for the Kennedy Center bringing Arts Across America to us
Yes.
and to partner with them so that we can bring our community to folks. Christian, I want you to play some more because I just love listening to you play.
Okay.
You couldn't see me backstage, but I was like hopping and grooving.
We
And
get
I was like,
you dance. You're doing your old dance routine from the room.
yes, I was doing the whole routine from that film. That's hysterical. But I know, like, you have a deep appreciation, you have a deep love for, and you are, in fact, an aficionado yourself on James Brown.
I am.
So go ahead. So I know, I mean, talk just a little second, or play something in tribute to, or I don't know, just do whatever you want.
I'll do both.
Okay.
I didn't go through this as sound check, but I'm gonna try this now. I'm gonna try to talk and play at the same time. So I don't want you to go anywhere. You won't see my hands, but you'll hear the bass. So as I mentioned before, my uncle Butch, my mother's brother, he passed away many years ago. Used to work for WHAT radio in Philly. And he took me to live shows all the time. And probably the first concert I remember seeing, I was maybe 6 years old. I saw the Isley Brothers at the Civic Center.
We just had Alex Isley on Arts Across America.
Is that right?
Yes.
See, there you go. And I remember my uncle taking me backstage, and I was really nervous, because I'm like, who are all these big, large people, And that promoter is hanging out back there, and groupies and roadies and all kinds of stuff, and of course you could smoke back then. So like everybody had a cigarette or something else,
Right. Yeah.
And I'm just standing in the corner like, these people are scaring me. And like, there we are in the Isley Brothers dressing room, and then they came walking in, and I was just like, wow. And I think it was Ernie Isley kind of looked down and was like, who's that little kid? And then he was like, oh, he's with Butch. He's like, oh, okay, cool. And so I kind of got indoctrinated into that R&B live music thing. And roughly around that same time, I saw James Brown on television for the first time. Now, I knew about the Isley Brothers. I knew about all the Motown people. I knew about James Brown, but didn't get me yet, But when I saw him on television for the first time, I saw him on the Midnight Special. I was done, absolutely done, because I thought the Tasmanian Devil was a fictional character. So when I saw this brown specimen singing and twirling, and like you couldn't see anything but dust on stage, I'm like, whoa, And so at that point, I went back to my uncle. I said, "Hey, Uncle Butch, you got any James Brown records?" And he looked at me as if to say, like,
now you're talking.
Found out. Now you know. And
Yeah.
from that point on, we never missed one James Brown concert anywhere within the 50-mile radius of Philly between 1982 and then from the time I moved to New York. So we were hardcore James Brown heads, you know, and I developed a real deep passion and love for his music, which made me just kind of go deeper and deeper. Like, okay, well, why does his music sound like that? What is it that makes it do that? You know, I went beyond that whole thing of, okay, it's funky and it makes me dance, but like, I got to get deeper into it. So there was this one James, like, so you hear a song like, that's hard to sit down and play. So you hear a song like I Feel Good, right? Pretty simple bass line.
I feel good. I would, yeah.
You know, so and like a song like Papa's Got a Brand New Bag. You know, real kind of simple bass lines. You know, the whole thing would be funky, but it would be kind of simple. You know, a song like There It Is, you know, and then let it, and then let it. So like real simple bass line kind of stuff, or even something like Payback. You know, you know, you didn't necessarily need to be a virtuoso to play those bass lines on those James Brown records. But then I heard Soul Power, and the bass line on Soul Power was you know, real syncopated and not the easiest thing in the world to play. And then when they get to the bridge, it's like and then part of my brain, even at age 9 or 10, I remember thinking the bass player on that song is not the bass player on those other songs.
Right.
The bass player got some chops, you know. And then I would hear something like Super Bad. And they get to the bridge, it's like I was like, who is that bass player? And of course, the deeper I got into it, I found out that that was a 19-year-old Bootsy Collins.
That's right.
You know?
That's right. Yep.
And I had already been a fan of Bootsy's because of the rubber band, you know. Hallelujah! They called me Casper. Not the friend of the ghost, but the Holy Ghost. Dig, you know. So I was like, that's the same dude? Oh my gosh, you know. So then like Bootsy, I mean, like, you know, we used to have that joke about you know, like all black families of a certain generation had like a picture of JFK, Martin Luther King, and Jesus, right? Like that Holy Trinity. And so I'll say we can make that a quartet, add James Brown, and then make it a quintet and add Bootsy, because like Bootsy was like that was my man, right? And so once I found out that that was him playing bass on all my favorite James Brown recordings, I went down a hole I could never get out of. And I finally got to meet James Brown in the early 90s. I was touring with Pat Metheny, and
another one of my favorites.
Yeah, we opened for James Brown, if you could believe that double bill. And
wow, that's wacky and fabulous.
Yeah.
That is wacky and fabulous.
Well, specifically, it was called the Montreux Jazz Festival All-Stars. And it was Pat Metheny, Joshua Redman, interesting band, Joe Sample, myself, and Billy Hart playing drums. And we opened for James Brown. And that night, I kind of got indoctrinated and kind of brought into the James Brown world.
Yeah.
And, it was a slow build because I didn't get to be like tight with him. I don't know if anybody got to be really tight with James Brown, but I got to know him, and I played with him twice. The first time was in 1997 at his. He used to do this big all-star birthday bash in Augusta, Georgia.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He invited me down, and I played, and then I produced one of his last concerts at the Hollywood Bowl in 2000.
Oh, that's lovely. That's amazing.
Yeah, and that's probably if I could think of all the things I've been able to do in my life, getting to know James Brown, I mean, that's I'm not sure anything will top that.
Yeah, I mean, he's the godfather of soul. You know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah.
And I gotta say, spending time with your father. That's
sweet of you to say so.
That's the real deal.
Yeah.
Remember that day? I didn't realize how much of a jokester your dad is.
Yeah, you gotta come on. I know you can't tell all the jokes because they're just sort of R-rated or whatever they are. Because
you were there. I came to the office. I think Melissa was with me. We came up to the office because we were going to interview him for this big event that we were having. And so we got the camera crew all set up. We're all like, getting ready for the interview. And what's the girl's name used to work? Is it Carmen?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think maybe. She said, Christian, Mr. B is on the phone. Like, okay. So I get on the phone. He's like, Christian, I'm in the hospital. We're like, you're in the hospital? What happened? He's like, man, I fell and I think I broke something, man. So they're taking me to the ER. And like, what? Really? And I told you, I said, Gina, your dad said he's on his way to the hospital. You were like, nah, he's joking. And then you like, is he? I was like, well, Mr. B, are you sure you're gonna? And then like almost on cue, he got off the elevator. And he had us going, man.
Yeah, he does. He has an amazing sense of humor. He has an amazing sense of humor, as you do. I mean, you love to tell jokes. I don't know if your fans know that about you, but if you see Christian live, he works a joke in there somehow, some way.
Well, I studied as much comedy as I have jazz.
Really?
So, again, I have to thank my family for having such a huge album collection, because for every rhythm and blues and soul record we had, there was probably a comedy record. So like
Mom's Mabley, Richard Pryor,
all that.
Me too. Me too. Growing up, me too. Wilson. I love that. And you bring a lot of humor to your music.
Got to,
because you'll play something that is so like. Sometimes I'll listen to you, Christian. It's just so beautiful and melodic and soothing and sexy and all those things. And then you'll turn around and play another tune, and it'll be like I'll laugh my way through it all somehow. Like, and it's interesting because not all musicians can really articulate that in that way.
So I wrote this song called "Walking Funny."
Play it.
And so so basically the song is centered around this bass line, which is supposed to depict someone who's drunk. So like that's why it's called "Walking Funny." And so the funniest part about people who are drunk is like they try to fight it. So like, nah, I'm cool. Ain't nothing wrong with me. They get off the stool and they're like,
right.
So like the rhythm's broken up. So most people who are sober, they walk, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. But like when you're drunk, it's like 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So I wrote this bass.
Sounds like you're speaking from experience.
But see, witnessing. Exactly. So one thing I've learned about myself, I don't get drunk. I go straight to headache and sick.
Oh.
So I bypass all the stutter steps. I'll just go straight to the bathroom.
I hear you.
All right. So I think so it's like I haven't played this in so long. I hope I remember this too. I'm messing up. Okay. Wait a minute. Let me just get the. this is it. So the bass line just keeps recurring. So it says one. So it's a bar 4, then a quintuplet bar, and then another 4/4 bar, and then 2 4/4 bars with half note triplets. That's musician talk. So it's like a. And the melody starts right here. You got to hear the melody along with it for it to really kind of lock together. But yeah, that's, you know, it's
no. But I started to feel a little drunk while you were playing that.
Yeah, it's fun to play that song, right? Because you know, I never tell them the story behind the song. So we start playing the groove, and you see people snapping their fingers, and all of a sudden they're like,
"What just happened?"
Okay, they're back.
I love it.
What are they doing? Right.
You know, it was interesting. As you were playing that, I got such an imagery of a person who was trying to walk. Do you do a lot of scores? Do you score film and stuff like that?
I have not. Well, I scored one documentary for our friend Esty Paper Murkison a few years
That's right.
ago. She did a documentary called "The Contradictions of Fair Hope," and I did the music.
The foot wash. About the foot wash?
Yes, yeah, about the foot wash. Yep. And so I wrote the music for that, but that's about it. But in that particular song, "Walking Funny," I'll give you some more musician insider talk. That bass line is built on the whole tone scale, and if you play whole tones, it's kind of funny. Like if you play a whole tone scale, you just kind of start chuckling and you don't even know why. That's kind of like what they use in a lot of old cartoons from the 40s and 50s and things like that. You know, anytime an anvil got dropped on somebody's head, you know, they play a whole scale, you know. So that's kind of that's what I use in Walking Funny.
That's hysterical. But I mean, I really could. I began to visualize, and it brought humor, you know, so that's really fabulous. Tell me, what are you working on right now? Or what have you, do you have an EPK that just came out, or did you just drop something new? Or what's going on currently that people can like find, search for, buy, tune into? And can you play something for us that's from something that you have that is something that you want to share?
Well, my 2 most recent projects, one that's out and one that's coming out next week, in fact, they're both big band recordings.
Oh, and you have a big band of your own.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, I know, it's fabulous.
Thank you. There's probably not much I could play on the bass that would give you sort of like some insight to what recordings sound like. But your dad was quite instrumental in my release that came out in February. It's called The Movement Revisited. And it's music written to the words of Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., Muhammad Ali. And the piece ends with those 4 voices reading President Obama's victory speech from 2008. And so the story behind that piece is back in 1998, I received a commission to write something for a Black History Month program in Portland, Maine. The Portland Art Society offered me this commission, but the only stipulation was that it had to involve a choir. And I knew nothing about writing or arranging for choirs. And so they introduced me to the great J.D. Steele from the Steele family. And he became my foil in writing this piece. So the piece evolved over a 20-year span. We recorded it in 2013. And for legal reasons, it took all of that time to finally get the clearances to be able to release it. And you may remember this, but when we recorded the CD, we performed the Movement Revisited at the University of Maryland, and your dad was so, I mean, just, that was like one of the greatest gifts I could have ever gotten in my life. He was, tell me about this piece you wrote. And, I told him, and I said, would you do it? Would you participate? He's like, sure, I'll do it. And he came and did that gig with my big band at the University of Maryland. And he read the text of his friend, Dr. Martin Luther King. And that was, you Belafontes are so special to me personally, not just to the world, but
mutual.
very much to me.
Absolutely mutual. Well,
and the recording that's coming out next week is my big band with our old buddy, Mark Whitfield, and the great Joey DeFrancesco on organ. We're doing a tribute album to Jimmy Smith, Wes Montgomery, and Oliver Nelson.
That's beautiful. I can't wait to hear it. I can't wait to hear it. And I know it's hard sometimes especially in a setting like this, for the bass to carry all of the other instruments and all of the other things. But your playing is so fabulous. I just love to hear you. I can't help it. We're almost at the end of our time together, which is shocking because it really did go very quickly.
I knew it would.
Yes.
The question is, what are you working on? Because you always got some cool stuff going on. I always applaud what you do with Sankofa.
Well, I appreciate that, and we do have some interesting stuff coming up. We're trying to engage people to get out the vote and to participate and be a part of their civic duty to being in the United States.
I got a mask with vote on it. I should get it real quick. I'll do something for you on that. Vote, y'all. Vote.
Vote. Yes, vote. Everyone needs to vote. And we're actually.
Sorry.
Say again. What is it?
If you don't vote, you can't say nothing when November comes around.
That's true. That you really can't.
Yeah.
We've got a really interesting lineup on October 15th. We're doing a little bit of a concert called Tu Música, Tu Voz, Tu Voto. We're centering in on the Latinx community. But enough about what we're doing, because this is really more about you. But I'm hoping and wondering if you could give us like a really beautiful improvisational, if you want, or take snippets of a song in particular that you love, whatever. Could you play us out?
Sure, absolutely.
Whether you pick or bow or whatever you want to do.
I'll play an old standard called "Alone Together." I'll play one chorus.
Okay, beautiful. So everyone who's watching, we're here at Arts Across America with Christian McBride. It's been such a pleasure to spend an hour with you this afternoon. And those who have tuned in, please check him out. Find out all his handles. They're in there in the chat. Buy his records. See what he's done. His music is transformative. It's beautiful. It's soulful. It's happy. It's funny. It's sexy. It's like everything. And thank you so much, Christian, for joining us today. And I'm so happy to be able to just hear you play us out.
Thank you, Gina. Anytime you call me, I'm there. Thanks for having me.
Peace, peace. Appreciate it.